Your child is staring at the ceiling. They have told you 3 times in the last 10 minutes that they are bored. You have a house full of toys. You have tablets, games, books, a backyard. And still, they look at you like you have personally failed them. So you hand them something. A screen, an activity, a snack. The boredom disappears. And you feel like a good parent. But here is what nobody told you. That moment of boredom you just ended? It was one of the most important things that could have happened to your child's brain today. Boredom is not a problem to solve. It is a neurological state your child's brain desperately needs. And the more efficiently you eliminate it, the more you may be quietly dismantling something that cannot easily be rebuilt. The science on this has been building for decades. But the findings have never been more urgent than right now. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Marcus Raichle at Washington University in St. Louis made a discovery that confused the entire field of brain research. He noticed that when his subjects were asked to do nothing, to simply rest and let their minds wander, certain regions of the brain did not go quiet. They lit up. They became more active than during almost any focused task. This network of regions, stretching across the inner surface of the brain, became known as the default mode network. And for years, scientists had no idea what it was for. The assumption had always been that an idle brain was a wasted brain. That the goal of childhood development was to fill every moment with input, stimulation, and structured learning. The default mode network challenged all of that. Researchers began to understand what the brain was actually doing during those quiet, wandering, so-called bored moments. It was not doing nothing. It was doing everything. The default mode network is where your child's brain processes social information. It is where they make sense of relationships, conflicts, and the emotional lives of people around them. It is where they rehearse conversations that have not happened yet. It is where they imagine different versions of themselves in different situations. It is where they begin to build what psychologists call a theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have different thoughts, feelings, and perspectives than their own. This is not passive. This is the deepest cognitive work a child's brain can do. Psychologist Adele Diamond at the University of British Columbia has spent her career studying something she calls executive function. These are the mental skills that predict long-term success far more reliably than IQ scores or academic performance in early childhood. Things like impulse control, flexible thinking, working memory, and the ability to delay gratification. And one of the clearest findings in her research is that these skills are not built through instruction. They are built through unstructured time. Through play that has no rules handed down by an adult. Through exactly the kind of open, formless, boring stretches of time that modern parents are most anxious to fill. Think about what happens in your child's brain when there is nothing to do. At first, there is restlessness. That is real, and it is uncomfortable. The brain, trained on constant stimulation, protests. Your child may whine, complain, pace around the room. This is not a sign that something is wrong. This is the sensation of the brain transitioning into a different mode of operation. If you let it continue, something shifts. Usually within 10 to 20 minutes, if the boredom is not interrupted, the brain begins to generate its own content. Your child starts to invent something. A story. A game. An imaginary world. A solution to a problem that has been sitting at the back of their mind. They start to notice things they have never noticed before. A pattern on the floor. The sound of wind outside. The way a toy can become a spaceship if you hold it at a certain angle. This is the brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. Researcher Manoush Samurati, who spent years studying the relationship between boredom and creativity in both adults and children, found that the state of mind wandering consistently precedes the brain's most original and generative thinking. The moments just before a creative breakthrough are almost always moments of apparent blankness. Of drifting. Of not quite focusing on anything. What looks like doing nothing is the incubation stage of every idea your child will ever have. And here is where the modern world has created a problem that no previous generation of parents has had to face. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. Children had to sit through long meals. They had to wait in silence while adults talked. They had to occupy long afternoons with whatever was available, which was usually very little. This was not considered enriching. It was simply the texture of life. But inside that texture, something was happening. The brain was learning to regulate itself. It was learning to generate internal experience. It was learning that the discomfort of an unoccupied moment did not need to be immediately escaped. Today, that training has been interrupted. The average child in a developed country encounters a screen within minutes of waking up. During meals, during car rides, during the waiting rooms and in between moments that used to be empty, there is now always something. Always input. Always stimulation. Always something to look at, tap, or watch. The brain never has to sit with itself. Psychologist Stuart Brown, founder of the National Institute for Play, has documented what happens to children who grow up in environments of relentless stimulation. They develop what he calls a tolerance for busyness, but a profound intolerance for stillness. They struggle to self-regulate. They require escalating levels of external input just to feel normal. They become less able to generate internal experience, less creative, less socially attuned, and increasingly dependent on whatever is in front of them to tell them how to feel. This is not a moral failure. It is a neurological outcome. A brain that never learns to self-generate does not suddenly develop that ability at age 12 or 18. The window is not infinite. Now here is the part that most parenting conversations miss entirely. The goal is not to introduce boredom as a punishment or a lesson. Children are not going to benefit from being told to be bored. The goal is to stop treating boredom as an emergency. When your child says they are bored, that is not a parenting failure. That is an invitation. The correct response is not to solve it for them. It is to hold the space open and let the brain do what it was designed to do next. This is genuinely difficult. Every instinct in a loving parent says to help, to provide, to smooth over discomfort. But there is a difference between discomfort that harms and discomfort that builds. Boredom falls into the second category. The restlessness your child feels in that first stretch of unoccupied time is the brain working. It is the brain practicing one of the most important skills it will ever need, the skill of turning inward and generating something from nothing. Adele Diamond's research found that children who had more experience with open-ended unstructured play showed significantly stronger executive function scores than children in more structured, activity-dense environments, even when those structured activities were specifically designed to be educational. The brain does not build its internal architecture from external programming. It builds it from the inside out, during the quiet moments when it is left alone to work. There is something else happening during boredom that rarely gets discussed. Your child is learning something about themselves. During unoccupied time, children begin to discover what they actually like. Not what is in front of them. Not what has been offered or suggested or made available. What they, as a specific human being with a specific inner life, are genuinely drawn toward. A child who has never been bored has never had to answer that question. They have only ever responded to prompts. A child who has learned to move through boredom and out the other side has started to build something much harder to measure, a sense of self. Marcus Raichle's default mode network does not just process creativity and social cognition. It is also the region most associated with autobiographical memory and self-referential thought, the kind of thinking where a child begins to understand who they are over time, what they have been through, what they value, and who they want to become. This is the developmental work of childhood, and it cannot be done on a screen. It cannot be done in a structured class. It can only be done in the quiet. So what does this mean for you, right now, as a parent navigating a world that has been engineered to eliminate every moment of emptiness? It means that some of the most powerful things you can do for your child's brain require you to do less, not more. It means that the afternoon where nothing was scheduled, where your child wandered around complaining for 20 minutes and then disappeared into their room and built something out of blocks or invented a game or came to you with a strange question about dinosaurs, that afternoon may have been more developmentally rich than the afternoon that was packed with activities. It means that the car ride where you did not turn on the podcast or the playlist, where your child stared out the window and said nothing for 15 minutes, was not a waste of time. It was time spent in exactly the kind of open cognitive state that the brain uses to consolidate, imagine, and create. It means that boredom is not the enemy of a good childhood. In many ways, it is the shape of one. The next time your child tells you they are bored, something is beginning. The brain is preparing to do something it cannot do any other way. Your job is not to stop it. Your job is to let it happen. And if you can do that, if you can hold the discomfort of watching your child sit with their own emptiness for long enough, you will eventually see what Marcus Raichle saw in his lab all those years ago. That a brain left to wander is not a brain doing nothing. It is a brain becoming itself. And that is the most important thing it will ever do.